So I'll turn it over now to Andy.
Okay. I'm Andy Slote, and I work with Eric at Object Spectrum. I have for about 4 years now. The intent of today was to talk about the future of IoT. We acknowledge that we have some experts up at the front of the room here, but there's a heck of a lot of expertise in the room. And so this, I'm sure, will evolve into more of a conversation about the future of IoT, where your perspective is a value added to the whole conversation as well. Eric spoke about Object Spectrum, which is probably a great intro to who Eric is, unless there's something else you want to tell us. I mean, you're a lifelong entrepreneur.
I am. A glutton for punishment, maybe. Yeah.
But so it probably makes sense for Pete to tell us a little bit about him, even though all of us know him pretty well, I think, already.
Pretty well. So yeah, I'm Pete. I have been doing IoT now since the dawn of man. No, it's actually, it's funny. My first IoT project that I ever worked on is I was with the EDS, and in 2002, I got put on the OnStar project. So we built OnStar for General Motors, which was a pretty cool IoT project. When I was with, when I was with Samsung, the coolest IoT I was GEO of the United States at Samsung. The coolest IoT project I ever did, I can't tell you who I did it for, but I built a Coke machine. Okay, with a 42-inch touchscreen, facial recognition, 3G hotspot, because it was 2008 and 9, as well as the sensing and monitoring, so you could actually do the diagnostics on the machine, whether the coin box was full. Yes, they still did coin boxes. This before we didn't have a credit card reader yet in there yet, or it was malfunctioning, or it was hot or cold, or so we did all that.
Inventory.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was at Accenture, the coolest project that I did is I worked on the entire sensor network for the largest railroad in North America, which of course is not Burlington Northern Santa Fe, but it is indeed CN Rail in Canada. So we actually put the sensors on the rail cars, for moisture, temperature, gas leaks. And the biggest problem that they had is that they would lose rail cars. Okay, now you say to yourself, they're big, right? So the problem is that when you ship something on a rail car to a warehouse or a yard, there's something called off track. So they take that one car and they load it there, so you can actually unload, like your lumber. Well, they forget to hook it up, and like the users never call and say, hey, come pick up your rail car. It's sitting here, because you end up saying, oh, I can put stuff in it and use it as a temporary warehouse, right? So they would do things like that. And then, so that was a cool IoT project. And then when I was at Capgemini after Samsung, the coolest IoT project I did is I did all the, so we did all the metering for, in Canada, for the electric meters for like Hydro-Quebec and BC Hydro. These are things you probably don't know about me. BC Hydro. So we actually put 3 million meters under management. And that were that Capgemini was managing mostly for the Canadian, the Canadian electrical system. Canada was actually very, very far ahead of the United States for that, as they were often. So I spent lots and lots of time in our office in Mississauga, which is by the airport in Toronto. And then, of course, I did found an IoT company, IoT America. So I've been around IoT a lot. This brings really something to a conversation, Eric. I'll ask you the question, right? So you've been doing IoT as long as I've been doing IoT, right? And I remember going and talking to people, and we'd pull up a McKinsey slide, and the McKinsey slide was, by 2025, okay, there are going to be, 50 billion IoT devices. Okay, and the promise of IoT was, it's going to be cheap connectivity propagated by the carriers, and we're going to be using Canon One and then be IoT and all this kind of stuff. How we doing?
Not so well so far.
Not so well so far. So why is that?
It's a really good question.
And I'm taking over your job, and
No,
I'm
it's
sorry.
okay, because Chris can flip to the next slide, and this leads into, we wanted each of the panelists to talk about a large, topic that's integral to IoT. And this is a great segue into talking about connectivity, I think, and that's what Eric
Yeah.
signed up for. So,
Yeah. So how come that happened?
I don't know. That's a really good question. Now it has certainly found its places. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what value it can bring. There's a lot of I think a lot of the early adopters. It's the normal hype cycle and the valley of despair.
Yeah, the trough of disillusionment.
The trough of disillusionment.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of the early adopters, as often happens, they were approaching this from a standpoint of, this is a miracle technology, it's going to solve all our problems. And they were disappointed and disillusioned when it turned out that it didn't solve all their problems.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of, the largest market segment, I believe right now, is the people that have not done it at all yet.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, I think it will start to find its place. It will start to, almost creep in a way where it becomes ubiquitous without even noticing it in a lot of ways.
BJ, what did you?
No, we've had I've had some conversations with AT&T.
Who?
And with AT&T, and they're basically, they want to do the same thing, right? Because for them it's traffic, and they want as many devices out there that can
Sure.
make money on. And one of the things that they're
But
running
you just
into-
said something operatively important.
Right.
You know what you said that was operatively important?
what's that?
That they can make money
They
on.
make money
Right.
off it. Yep,
Yeah. Do you know what they sell? They have the OnStar market now.
they do.
Do you know how much they sell the OnStar Sims for?
Oh, well, how much is it?
22 cents.
Yeah, they don't make a lot of money on it.
Not much. No.
They got millions of them though.
Yeah, they are. But one of the
And
things that they
the
run
bandwidth
into
costs
is,
are incredibly
yeah,
low.
and what they run into is that they're looking from a 5G standpoint, right? But the IoT, but they feel the devices are not enabled to operate in that network yet, and
Sure.
they're running into a blockade on that. And they thought it would happen this year. They feel it's going to happen a little more in 2024. But their inside news that I just had a meeting with them just 3 weeks ago, that they're pretty frustrated about the fact that devices are not enabled yet all the way. And they're looking at it probably from 2025 when it starts scaling up. But they feel that it's going to happen, but it's going to take a little longer than what we wanted to be.
Well, so it's really interesting, right? So Thaddeus Arroyo runs that group.
Yeah.
You know what that is?
I know that is, yeah.
Yeah. So
He's gunning for to be the next CEO.
yeah, there are a few. He has a couple of competitors also.
He does, he
Yeah, he does. So it's interesting, right? The problem is, the other problem with IoT is a financial metric that the carriers have called ARPU,
Mhm.
right? So ARPU, IoT makes ARPU very problematic on the street, because when you're doing an IoT sensor for pennies a month, okay, you are attriting your financial reporting of ARPU.
Exactly right.
Okay, so I mean, in case of,
Totally different than a $40 a month cell phone.
oh yeah, absolutely. So, but you're talking, but you'll make it up on volume, right?
Exactly.
So it's I had the pleasure for 6 months being the temporary president of Sky Patrol, which is a company based in Arlington. They're a buy here, pay here company. Do you all know what buy here, pay here is?
Mhm. Mhm.
It's the segment of the automotive industry where people don't have money and they're
We
poor.
we tote the note.
Yeah,
right?
so they basically finance the dealership finances the car, okay, and they go and at a higher interest rate, and they get somebody a car. But if they don't make their payment, they repossess it. So what Sky, yeah, it's sad face. It's really sad face, right? And so what Sky Patrol did is they actually made a module that they put in the car that hooked up to the OBD2 port, which had a SIM in it. And if you didn't make your payment, they could disable your car and look and locate it, so Mr. Repo Man could go get it. And the real value proposition of why they actually do this is that sometimes they might sell the same car 4 times for the same price. So, it's, so Sam Baruch actually owns the company down in Arlington. The point is that when I did the deal with them, I bought 215,000 SIMs from Verizon, okay, at 47 cents a month per SIM.
It's lousy
It's a lousy
ARPU,
ARPU, right? Now, obviously, there are caveats, right? It goes only 75K bits per month, only 5 SMSs, because you need the SMS to kickstart the module, blah, 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 blah.
Right. The good thing that they like about the fact that all these IoT devices, they're going to need a SIM card. That's the only thing they're at.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, not all of them.
That SIMs are going away, right?
Yeah, they are slowly.
Too slowly.
Too slowly.
And
Yeah.
they're converting all the old central offices into big,
Edge of data centers.
Right.
into big, as close to the enterprise.
Which is
possible.
happening. It is happening.
It is happening.
So, and this is part of 5G, right? So, but this is another thing you brought up. You brought up 5G, and 5G has been a very slow start. Okay.
Very slow.
And so, why is that? Okay, it's because the things that 5G enable, okay, is actually a tiny part of what you need for connectivity. Okay, if you're tracking rail cars in Canada, you don't need 5G.
You need 2G.
Period. You need 2G, 1G, 0G, maybe.
Well,
So,
I mean, case in point. So when I started IoT America in 2017, you all remember I ran that company for a while until, thank you, pandemic. Anyway, we did it with LoRaWAN.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
So if y'all know what LoRaWAN.
Yeah.
So the value proposition of LoRaWAN is that it goes far, but the packet size is only 442 bytes.
Maximum.
Right.
Yeah.
That's an ideal situation,
Yes.
right?
Right.
So, with a good noise floor, not a lot of contention and whatnot, but you could always resend, right?
Sure.
Because it's usually on, off, in, out, off, cold, PH
Exactly.
3 data.
Yeah, and you're sending very
Very
infrequently.
Yeah.
You're not sending video over LoRaWAN.
No. But the point is that, it's cheap.
Yes.
And that makes it really hard for a carrier, which basically is why the adoption, the reason that IoT is not adopted is because it's too expensive. IoT is too expensive.
Which is changing though,
Well,
there's a lot of factors at work that's driving those costs down.
Yes.
Okay. But some of these are to the detriment of the carriers. If we're talking about a SIM-based, virtual SIM or real SIM or whatever, a SIM-based, carrier-based wireless technology. LoRaWAN is a great example of a technology that is extremely cheap. Okay, even if you go to one of the public carriers, okay, it's still extremely cheap on a per month basis.
Oh, sure.
But you can also, of course, deploy your own LoRaWAN network.
Yeah, and one of the things,
Mhm.
cellular, obviously,
Mhm.
everyone's very familiar with. We all have phones. We all walk
Yes.
around everywhere with them.
Right.
But LoRaWAN, the penetration of public networks
yeah.
is spotty.
Very
and
much.
You've got things out there like Helium
Oh,
that's
yeah.
trying to make a go of it. That
Sure.
has its own deficiencies. So it's
Yes.
to say that the two are in the same
They're not.
realm. They're not.
They're very different, as are other technologies as well. You could think about Wi-Fi and Bluetooth as being other wireless technologies, and they are absolutely used in IoT applications. Okay, but you're not going to go long range with Bluetooth, for example. Okay, and so even though the technologies are all very different, to some degree there are overlaps in that Venn diagram of the applications. So there's plenty of applications where you could say, well, this application, this has to be cellular. Okay, because of point 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's no way around it. It must be a cellular-based solution. Okay. Here you have another one that says this one has to be LoRaWAN because it's being deployed in places where there is no cellular. So that's not even an option. Okay. And I'm just using those two examples. We could fill in the blanks of any one of the other wireless.
Although the LoRa Alliance has actually been working with several of the LEO satellite providers.
Yes, exactly.
To actually deploy LoRaWAN off of satellite.
Satellite. Yeah, exactly right.
Right. So basically, it's you have a price versus a distance, and
And a power consumption.
and a power consumption. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's like we all 5 years ago everybody was talking about how NB-IoT is going to rule the day.
Right.
Carriers don't put in NB-IoT anymore.
Nope.
The reason the carriers don't put in NB-IoT is cost, because all carriers had to upgrade their network to release 14 of 3GPP to run NB-IoT.
And they don't
Which
see,
they
don't
did.
see the economic value in it.
But with Cat M1, when you went to 3GPP release 14, you got it automatically. With NB-IoT, you then had to augment your RAN system for the NB-IoT because there were different slicing opportunities, which made NB-IoT wicked expensive.
Which is good for Ericsson.
Ericsson likes it. Yes, yeah, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a stupid question. for
There are no stupid questions,
No.
just
Oh, yeah,
stupid
I can
answers.
answer this. So what IoT applications are making money today?
Are making money today?
I mean, what?
What do you mean? Do you mean making money for the end user, or you were talking about providing value? Because like for your end user, there's only 3 reasons you do something, right? You do it for the ROI impact, the TCO impact, or the compliance impact. Anything else is a science project.
Right.
And mostly I would say they're TCO impacts.
And
today.
most IoT is TCO.
Right.
So is there anything
Well,
providing really high value or?
yeah, I'll give you one
Jillions.
example. Okay. What's that?
Jillions of them.
Oh yeah, there is absolutely. So I'll give you one example. There are deep water well monitors all along from Iowa to the West Coast, okay, that are monitoring the underground aquifers. Okay. Huh?
Yeah.
Yes. And so traditionally, these were monitored in one of 2 ways, either manually, truck and clipboard, okay, once a month, or by a very expensive satellite, whatever transponder type system, okay, very expensive to install. So they couldn't install very many of them, okay. That system today is all done using LoRaWAN, okay. The sensors are inexpensive, the network is inexpensive, and they're getting hourly readings on this. And all that data is basically feeding into agricultural, water planning, Department of Natural Resources at the states and county levels. And so the TCO on that is very high because the technology is so much, not only cheaper than the old solution, but also much better. It's more accurate, and they get better reporting out of it.
Yeah.
So that's just one example.
I'll give you 2 examples we had at IoT America. So our number 1 seller, it was sweet. So we did moisture sensing in orchards.
Yep.
It was literally sweet.
Yep.
Because what happened
to get better yield on the orchard.
Yeah, you would think you would do it to save the water, right?
Nope.
They don't give a damn about saving the water. Okay, but what they want is they want the correct moisture content on the fruit of the tree when they harvest, right? So what they would do, we had sensors that went down 6 inches, 12 inches, 18 inches, 36 inches, right? If you look at an apple tree, I know way too much about this, okay? If you look at an apple tree, it has 2 different root balls. It has the wide root ball and it has the core root that goes down 7 feet, right? So you have to make sure that you have the proper moisture for an optimal fruit at both levels. So, they would use things like drip irrigation, spray irrigation, and whatnot to do that. And they would get a 20% yield increase on the quality of the fruit with the proper irrigation. So we actually put in about 200 orchards.
Wow.
okay, to do that in mostly the Pacific Northwest. That was our number one seller. One of the other big applications we used was tank monitoring for propane tanks. Now you're saying you should say to yourself, yeah, you know, when I barbecue, you know, I just go out to the Walmart and do an exchange, right?
Not those kind of.
Not those kind of tanks, right? So the tanks that we did were in farms and ranches.
Right.
So everybody in a farm and ranch has a tank, right? So typically speaking, the propane dealer runs a route, and they go run and fill the route. How much do you think one of those propane trucks cost?
Oh, wow.
100,000.
What?
100,000
500,000
for one truck.
for one truck. One of those big ass trucks that does the propane. They are a $500,000 a pop. Okay, now
Propane.
to deliver your propane, right? Now they last a long time, right? So if you actually calculate it per tank, per truck, per day, over 3,600 days, it's pretty inexpensive. But what ends up happening from a route optimization perspective, they go and check all, they send a guy or a woman.
And he drives around.
And he
and
drives
checks all the
around and
tanks.
checks all the tanks all over God's green earth, right?
Yeah. Believe it or not, that's the state of the art.
And that's how they do it. Now we
Yeah.
put a strip on the side of the tank because if you have propane, what you'll notice, it has different temperatures as you go up the tank to where the propane level is in the tank. So you can actually tell the fill level from an external monitor out there, and you put a LoRa sensor on there, right? So they can actually pre-plan that, go into the route optimization, and they can go and provide good customer service, saying, Mrs. Smith, your tank is 7 days empty. Should we come over and top it off? Okay, or they can go over and say, Mr. Jones, we're not coming over here because you've used like no propane, so we're not going to waste our time, right? So what they do is they provide better customer service, and they have better route optimization, which means that on a large operation, you need probably 3 less people and 1 less truck. Is that impactful for your business? The answer is heck yes. Plus less gas, less this, it all adds up. Make
Yeah,
sense?
was that also, Laurel?
It works both cellular and LoRaWAN. It depends, right? Because the problem with LoRaWAN, right? So like in my business, I used commercial gateways, right? So I used Curlink gateways, which are very good gateways, right? And they're
expensive.
Well, they're about $1,500 a pop, right? But they're carrier grade, right? They're to go up on the tower, and they go, typically it goes 10 kilometers in radius, which is about 75,000 acres. And I can handle about 10,000 sensors off one gateway, but it's carrier grade, right? I mean, you buy a $200 gateway.
Right. Don't put that on a tower.
Don't put it on tower. Yeah, it's bad idea.
People do it. People do it.
It's a bad idea.
Do not do that.
So, but the point is that, like you use a Tiktelek as well.
Exactly.
With tower,
Yes.
right?
Right.
So, yeah.
I was gonna throw out one more application.
Oh, there's no, I mean, I could go.
We spend all day here.
All day on
Yeah,
apps.
absolutely.
Just the energy efficiencies there that they're getting in meeting compliance.
So when I did when I wrote the 5G strategy for DFW Airport, okay, we were talking about putting LoRaWAN sensors in the bathrooms for the toilets. Okay, and measuring how many times the door opens on the stall, and doing a calculation to go clean it.
It never happened though, did it?
No.
Yeah. It's too bad, actually. It's a good application.
Great application.
Yeah.
Well, that tails into the question I want to ask.
It does tail into the question.
Toilets.
Talk about the successes of our industry, but.
Ed,
Okay.
are we remote attendees allowed to ask questions to the panel?
The voice of God is yes.
Yes, we'll let you answer.
Repent.
Ask your question.
Repent.
We'll let you-
A question for Eric. I'm curious, you'd mentioned that you're more on the software side, which is where I'm focused. What level of interest are you seeing now? Up to now, so much of IoT has been about connectivity, right? But at some point, some of these new standards are coming out, there's going to be an opportunity for businesses to move more into predictive behavior, to collect all this data and then, through machine learning to actually really make buildings or campuses or, any kind of a business smarter. You can collect historical data from sensors and then you can use it to predict what typical behavior might be, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So do you think that the industry is, actively looking at this now? Is this something that's happening soon? Is this, 5 years out, actually using predictive behavior to not just connect IoT devices, but to actually control them, to add additional intelligence? So what's your take on that?
Well, the answer is it's a very lumpy scenario right now. Okay, there are absolutely cases today, right now. We worked on a project a few years ago that specifically deals with rotating machinery. Okay, so pumps and motors, generators, and that type of thing. And it was exactly about predictive maintenance. Okay, using analytics, using machine learning, and basically, what was the TCO objective? Was to prevent unscheduled downtime. Okay. Because if you can service one of your rotating pieces of equipment before it crashes, then you're going to have a better financial outcome. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that is absolutely happening. But it's point solutions. Okay. And what you're talking about, I think, is the more cohesive solution that says, well, great, in this physical plant, we've got 27 rotating pieces of machinery that all have predictive analytics built into them, but our HVAC system is still running on a mercury switch thermostat. Okay, and our ventilation decision is whether or not the temperature is above or below 55 degrees. Okay, this is state of the art right now in a lot of buildings. Okay. And so I think that's what I was saying earlier, there's a lack of understanding by a lot of people that would be in the decision-making position, okay, of what value they're ultimately going to get from this, okay? So could IoT be deployed in any reasonable sized building and create a better environment for the building, create better energy usage? The answer is absolutely yes. But I don't think that the decision makers have gotten to the point yet where they really believe that's going to happen. There's no motivation yet.
Well, and they're dealing with post-COVID. Right
Well,
now.
that's exactly right.
They can't keep leases. They can't keep.
They have other problems
That's
right
bigger
now for
problems.
sure. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's a good point. So during COVID, okay, everybody was interested in indoor air quality, right? It was like the thing, we have to fix it, okay? And then they're like, wait a minute, how do we measure that? I don't know. Do you know how to measure that? I don't know how to measure that.
I know how to measure it.
I know you do. I know, but a lot of people are like, okay, how about CO2? That's the way to measure it. It's like, well, not really, right? So now we're in, I guess we are allegedly in post-COVID, right? Okay.
Allegedly.
And now nobody cares about indoor air quality anymore. Okay. It's like, whatever happened to that? So this is an unfortunate scenario, is that, and as you say, the commercial real estate business for sure, they got a different set of problems. Now, okay.
They're deep kimchi.
Exactly. Now, I have seen some other applications where the focus has been energy, okay, and that gets kind of into compliance in a way, but also into saving money in places where you have peak energy billing type systems and that type of thing, where if you can be smarter about how you operate your HVAC, because the HVAC is the #1 energy consuming thing in the building, right? If you can be smarter about how you do it, using things like presence detection, using things like monitoring indoor and outdoor air temperature even, okay, and being smart about how you use ventilation, you can reduce the energy usage of the building. So that has a direct economic impact. Again, I see it as another point solution. They're going in and they're basically saying, hey, if we do these 3 things, we can give you a better energy profile and you can save X number of dollars over a year. So that's happening too, but we're far from the cohesive solution as being a standard.
Yeah, and I want to build on what Eric said, because everything Eric said is spot on. First off, shout out to Harry. He has business, does all that. So, well, we can talk about that. So there are 4 states of IoT analytics, right? There's the and data handling. There's the historic data, like what happened. There is the real-time data. There is the what is happening. There is the predictive data, like based on what is happening and what it happened, and other data sources that I can go forward and bring in to bear. This is what's going to happen. Okay, and then there's the 4th one, which nobody really talks about, which is vastly the most important, and that's the prescriptive.
What should you do
what
about
should I
this?
do about it, right? Because the problem is, I can call, my, extabits of data and put them in a large cloud with, edge resources. I can put it in Hadoop or Cassandra or Mongo and some sort of unstructured data element and go forward and take external data sources and get there, but basically what I have to do, what people really want, they don't want to know what's going to happen. They want to know what the hell should I do about it?
Yes.
Okay. And that is the prize, right? It's, the predictive has been around a long time, right? And the savvy users have been doing the predictive. It's the prescriptive, right? It's when you go forward and you take the AI and you build the algorithms to go forward and do that and generate what you're going to do, right? I mean, that's what people really, really want to do, right? So, that's where it is. Like, so when I did the consulting work at DFW Airport, so, they all have the same elevators and escalators throughout the airport. Did you ever wonder why? Because they have central management system, which means their procurement is handcuffed to buy Kone elevators and escalators.
It plugs into the
because
system.
it plugs into it. Did you know that they have Cisco APs in their airport? Okay. By the way, they have 802. Just to let you know that I might know that off the top of my head. Okay. And by the way, the Wi-Fi in the airport sucks. Okay. I told them what to do. They haven't done anything about it yet, but it is what it is. Right. Do you know why they're all Cisco?
They plug it into Cisco.
Because they plug it into the Cisco management system.
Right.
Right.
And the same is true for billing management systems. If
Yeah,
you have a
they're-
Schneider system,
you're-
everything
you
you
are-
buy is going to be a Schneider
Now,
system, right?
Kone has a really nice IoT management system, right? Train or Carrier have really pretty okay-ish. Honeywell, same thing, right? They all have these great systems. The problem is the reason that there's no interoperability is because it absolutely flies in the face
They don't want it.
of the company. Like Cisco, you don't want anybody else's stuff.
Right.
You don't want Aruba stuff working. I know you used to work at Cisco, Laura. I'm pointing at
That
you.
was the last gig. I don't know why you keep talking to me.
But yeah, that was the most memorable. I know you were at Microsoft too. I can yell about them.
No, I was just thinking that they also have other reasons for staying with Cisco. I mean, in general, these vendors, it's more than just the management system, but and the contracts, for example, the relationship, the politics, all of it.
The politics,
Don't let
yes, the
don't let
relationship, the money, yes.
Yeah. So, but I don't disagree that central management system. What I was going to ask you though is, don't you think that the what to do when is more of a business operational question? It's like escalation procedures or some form of.
Well, it always fits into it, right?
But the
Without
software
question.
can do that. The
I mean,
software
you
can.
could ratchet down a gauge or something, but you can't really operationalize the what to do when.
You
Sure you can.
Absolutely.
You can on a
Absolutely.
mechanical level, but there will be operational consequences. I'm just saying,
You have, so at this point,
I can get you all the way to predictive or preemptive, but the next step after that, I'm not going to agree that it's 100% data is all I'm saying.
no, you'll always have people, but I wildly disagree with everybody. With the concept that you can't use AI to go and effectively, do that.
So that's a good question you bring up, Laura. Actually,
I don't know. Anybody here in AI? So I am too.
we're doing software for network performance where we do the prescriptive part, but only suggest. Don't.
Of course.
Well, I mean,
Because
and there's culpability and legal liability and all sorts of.
Liability issues
Fire,
involved, yeah.
those things like those. I wouldn't not do some form of a fix if you can safely, but Just saying, don't
reluctant
think that
to
you're
do it.
done. That's
Yeah.
all I'm saying.
So-
These are the
Even a
solutions.
little bit is a bit scary to do because you don't know what the liability is going to be if something goes right. You can't cover that.
So I'm building a company right now that we are going to manage the IoT sensors in the cars. Okay, from an insurance perspective, we're talking about tens of billions of sensors. Okay, now how am I going to go manage that? I have an AI engine doing it because I can't put enough call center agents in a room to look at all the car sensors concurrently in real time. But
You have to have at least one manager for your manager system.
without question, yes, without question.
I'll give you an example in agriculture. Okay, so this is a prescriptive thing. Okay, so talk about irrigation of row crops, corn and wheat and things like
And
that.
sorghum,
okay?
don't forget
Oh,
sorghum.
sure. That's how could you forget sorghum? Yes, but so traditionally, the farmers, are doing it because they're farmers and they've been doing it for a long time. Well, it's time to irrigate. Okay, great. Well, now we've got the soil moisture sensors and we've got the ability to do very accurate weather forecasting on a very hyper local level. And we've got,
And you put in your own weather meters.
you put your
too.
own weather meters in there too. So you know what the history is at that.
By the way,
field,
Davis makes a
okay?
really good weather meter for that.
Davis, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
And so we could theoretically have the system control the irrigation. Could, okay? But the farmers don't want that, okay? They don't want it, okay? Now we're going to suggest to them when they should irrigate and how many acre inches they should, that's how they measure the water, but how many acre inches they want to do that. But they're going to go out and push the button that starts the irrigation system.
I'm perfectly okay with them having a remote control, just like City of Dallas, SCADA. If you go to that room right now,
Yeah.
you'll see all the pumps in the City of Dallas.
Right.
The thing I'm suggesting is that when you get the alarm that says excessive water, that you still need to shut in a valve automatically and then
Yes.
roll the trucks to figure out why the thing was.
Sure. Sure,
That's
but
all.
that's it. The shutting of the valve, which I
Yeah.
wouldn't even say is prescriptive, that's more of an alert
I do
response,
think
right?
you have to have
You know.
some form of mechanical, especially in emergency context. You want
Sure.
the door to
Yes,
shut,
you want a
want the
manual
alarm
override.
system to
Yes,
go
you
off.
absolutely want one.
One of the biggest problems in the old 7-Eleven building downtown was that they didn't have a manual override. And you had to punch the button before you wanted to go from the outside.
Right,
Once you're inside, there was no way. If you're stuck, you're stuck.
right.
Yeah.
This is scary.
But Laura, I got to tell you, I can't tell you how many times I was in West Texas, right? Going on farms, and it's pouring outside. Okay, pouring.
And they're running the irrigation.
And they're running the
system.
irrigation
Right.
system. Is that the stupidest thing? Right.
Plano, they don't have their water sensors on their sprinklers.
Right. Right. You got it. Right. And we are in the
And,
level.
and by the
always
way,
in
this is a
level two.
very simple thing, okay? This is
There
not even really advanced, okay?
There are
Um,
complex issues at hand. But the thing is that, the promise is there, and that's where the value is. Because, we can talk IoT all we want, right? IoT doesn't mean a dang thing. It's about data.
Mhm.
It's always
About what you
the
do with the data too.
But we have the horsepower now, the cloud horsepower to do predictive and prescriptive. I think the issue here is the lack of integration. Like you mentioned, all of those connectivity standards. That it's the lack of data.
That is
Yes and no, but it's also a lack of understanding by the customer who's ultimately making the decision to invest in that technology. Okay. But also, one other part about this too is if you have a company that has a bunch of equipment and they have no connectivity, and we use the word IoT, they have none of that today right now. Okay. Talking to them about how we're going to add prescriptive analytics and all kinds of things like that is beyond the realm of what they have any interest
Or
in.
workforce
okay?
management.
They want to
or
know,
business
can you
rules
tell me
engines.
how many hours my machine is running? Yep, you can do that.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's a starting point. Okay. And it starts to get that data. And now after a while, we can say, by using this historical data, we can actually predict how much machine capacity you're going to need based on your fourth quarter orders or whatever the case may be. Okay. But that's not where most people are today.
You know, for several years, I used to chair the Internet of Manufacturing Conference, right? Talking about manufacturing IoT, which by the way is very far ahead from other, you know, any other part of the IoT, right? Manufacturing and utility, very far ahead, especially on the SCADA side, right? The number one reason that they put in IoT very robustly is because when the factory floor is down, they measure the outage time in hundreds of thousands of dollars an hour.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, or a
bad-
minute.
That's a bad.
That is suboptimal. By the way, before we go into one other thing, so the remote user usurped Gary. You were asking a question.
I was gonna, I mean, the untalked about issue that I'd like to maybe have a little discussion around is there's a substantial amount of our projects that fail. And what I typically find from my personal experience is it's not necessarily the technology. Can you kind of maybe talk about how we could be more successful in implementation?
Well, that has to do 100% with people.
It does. It does.
That's
It's
a people thing.
Yeah, it's what I said earlier. Too many people went into this assuming that this was some kind of magic bullet that was going to solve all the problems. Okay. And so they approach it from what I call a boil the ocean strategy. Okay. This is what our MVP looks like. It's got 1,400 requirements in it. Okay. That is bound to fail. I don't care if you're doing an IoT project or you're building a bridge, you know, that's going to fail. So the idea and what we encourage our customers to do is define that MVP in a very, very minimalist way. What is the first thing where you can start getting some value? Okay. And we already know maybe what step 2 and step 3 and step 4 look like, or we have an idea of what they might look like, but we're not trying to go right to step 15 on day 1. That's a way to spend a lot of money and a lot of time and probably not get the results you're looking for.
Yeah, I'm going to build on what everything you're saying is right.
Think about this sometimes.
Well, you know, geez. So, you know, the problem is when you have a large potential for IoT in a project, right? You want to look at it and you're going to say, which is going to bring the most value? And value can be calculated and generated in a number of ways. It could be cost, it could be customer satisfaction,
Right.
It could be safety, it could be, you know, operational use, right? So like, again, I'm going to go to DFW Airport. You know what the number one reason they wanted to go and put in a private wireless network? Okay, because let's look at Laura again, but because the Cisco Wi-Fi network just sucked, right? So the problem with the Cisco Wi-Fi network is that there's only one channel. There is no private Wi-Fi network. When people get off the plane, they inundate it. When people are there inundated, the vendors all have to use the same Wi-Fi network. And the vendors, the people who actually, you know, sublet like restaurant spaces have to attach to that Wi-Fi network. And the airport makes every store in there report their daily receipts because the airport gets a percentage of the daily gross sales on part of their lease, right? Well, they can't report it. And if they don't report it, they get a penalty, even though they can't get connectivity because the airport's not providing them connectivity. So what they actually want, I mean, it's just the cluster, and I can use that F word behind it, but the real issue at hand is they want to go and put in the private wireless so they can connect the dang POSs. So they can have POSs.
Economic driver right there.
I mean, that's the, you know, so the airport can get money in a timely manner and so that they can actually report.
So I have a unique perspective because I lived on both sides of the world, right? As the mayor, you know, the $1 billion worth of stuff you have to worry about. And, SCADA system, GIS system, a 72-inch water pipe that broke and flooded 20 homes 4 feet deep with water.
I hate when that happens.
That's not a good phone call. Not to mention the lawsuits and the litigation that goes and dealing with 5 different insurance companies and all that kind of fun stuff. And the pipe was North Texas Central Water District, not cities, but it was in the city. So that added a level of complexity. Fortunately, you know, like Dallas, we had implemented a new SCADA system, GIS system just a few years before. Unfortunately, we had it in long enough that we were collecting pretty good data and new things. The team has pondered moving from predictive to prescriptive. By that I mean, when that pipe broke, lots of things happened in the system, and there's sensors all over the city, and system monitoring. And you think it'd be, I'm a telco guy, not a water guy, but networks and networks. And so when you start turning things off, stuff happens.
It's right. It has side effects, right?
Big time,
Yeah.
especially when you start changing directions.
Right.
We start bringing water in from Plano and Dallas. You got to.
And the
Change.
sediment floats out of the pipe, and all of a sudden people
Yeah.
have dirty water in their houses. Yeah, it's
And
terrible.
the team credited the new SCADA system and the data collected there for not having any additional breaks in the network. But it really, we've been discussing, well, instead of having the team looking at the data and making decisions on control systems and changing directions and flows and things like that, that we could automate it to the point where stuff happens, things kick in, it takes over. They've made the decision not to go that direction, and I, politely agreed. I mean,
They will eventually do it.
but they
because-
will eventually do it.
Yeah.
And the reason, and this is when I get invited as a mayor to go talk about smart cities, I usually disappoint people. Not just my wife, but other people, is that I tell them that it wasn't just the SCADA system, right?
Right.
We run our financials, our procurement, our billing, all of that stuff on old IBM AS400 stuff.
Wow.
Don't
Say
talk-
that as a panelist?
Yeah, I mean,
Everybody's got it though. That's the thing. They're all comforted by this statement.
yeah,
Right.
Like every customer I've ever worked with.
yeah,
Got-
but when you're on a panel and you've got a
Today.
bunch of shiny object sales guys,
Yeah.
which I've been one, you kind of go, oh, so your systems don't talk to each other. I go, we don't even have common data.
Right.
And so the holy grail, to your point about data being so important, is
It's all about
what
that.
I would challenge my CIO and CISO to was, let's get our data right. Because once you get the data right, then you can come to me and say, hey, I've got this new system that'll tell you when the trash containers in the city parks are full, and you can do rerouting of trucks and save diesel. I'm like, you know what? When I can actually pay my bills and I can pay my, employees.
And you can buy diesel.
And I can buy diesel.
Ooh, I got a story for you.
It becomes more
How
consolidated.
are we doing on time?
Let's go to 9:15 and then we'll cut it off then and do our.
So by-
I've been holding my question for a while.
Go ahead,
It
Joe.
becomes more consolidated, more, better. You get the machine learning, you get the AI. What's going to have that bigger impact? Machine learning and AI, or the security on that device?
Oh.
So I know you have to have both.
They're very,
but what's gonna-
very
what-
different parts of it.
Very different, but
Yeah.
what's going to end up being more important and more, as the enterprise? is
Well,
gonna be-
security is important regardless of AI. Okay, AI, of course, can be used as a way to quickly make decisions.
Well, you got the
based on
prescriptive
data.
portion of that,
I'm
right?
sure, right.
I
And so,
mean,
the point is security, you say, well, maybe security becomes more important because you have the prescriptive, you have the ability for the system to make decisions on its own. So now security is more important. I would say no. I would say security is already important because even if there's a human in the loop, they got to have good data, right? So at the end of the day, that's a prerequisite.
In the
for
example I
anything.
gave, I had to do a deal with our CISO.
Mhm.
I had to deal with my police department and I had to deal with the FBI
mhm.
because it's both cyber and physical security.
Mhm.
And when neighbors are starting to ask to see the diagrams of your pipes,
Right,
and we have to tell them no,
right.
because we don't want terrorists knowing where all the control.
Yeah, because
systems are.
blowing up the pipe is not the worst thing that could happen.
So at the end of the day, that filter of security, when you talk about systems and people that manage them being comfortable, they're going to always fall back to security, saying,
Yes.
no, that trumps
Right.
everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether it's prescriptive or not.
Yeah, so Joe, I have the fiber map for DFW Airport. I physically possess it.
You should not say that.
Right.
I'll edit that part out.
Okay.
She told me that this week. It's kind of funny.
Having sold security in my life, I will say it's completely underfunded relative to the impact.
Of course it is, because nobody wants to invest in security,
So-
Having
right?
the AI, carrot or financial benefit might help fund more security.
So-
People
so-
don't
so-
pay for what they really need in the cyber.
That's
So
true.
Laura,
That's
it's definitionally underfunded everywhere.
Yes.
If you actually, and by the way, this is good because I'm supposed to talk about security.
Right. And by the way, this is Pete's edited security slide. He wanted to make sure that all these topics were on.
I edited this slide, okay?
There's a
So,
few security points.
There's a security points on here, okay?
Just a few, man.
I
just a
mean,
few.
so Laura, remember, I invented Knox, which is
I
the
don't see
security
Knox up
protocol
there.
on the
I don't see
Samsung
Knox
Galaxy
up there. Where's
device,
Knox on
right?
your
So
slide?
I invented that. I'm on the board of Maxure, which is a cyber risk security platform. I'm building a security platform for automated vehicle, and I am the CEO of M Labs, which is a secure mobile device OS, which we're actually working with DoD on. So
And you've
yeah,
never had a blank check.
what?
And you've never had a blank check.
I've never had a blank. Well, I did it at Samsung. I had
I'm
a
just saying.
Samsung. I had a blank check. What I'm about to say is, if you actually look at the NIST cybersecurity framework, right? And I've talked to people, from a cyber perspective. If you calculate what it would cost to actually fulfill the entire recommendations sheet of NIST, it's 2 times top line. It is
I'm not
twice the
suggesting
top
this
line
is
of
the
your.
budget.
Of,
I'm saying that. I
nobody
think-
has it because nobody's going to spend twice as much as they make to do cybersecurity.
But the question was, do you think AI or cyber is more important?
No, I think they're
I was
equal.
just saying that I think once you get I can't have unplanned downtime in refineries is like 2 million a
Yeah,
day.
right.
It's 200,000 an hour or
Right,
something.
right.
So you don't want, there are certain areas where they'll spend all kinds of money just to keep things
Yep.
running.
Yes.
So the cybersecurity or any form of
Those
security.
have
So,
the big
Joe, I'm gonna
impact
answer
on
you.
IoT, right? What's gonna have that bigger impact on the?
So I'm going to answer your question kind of awkwardly. Okay. It is always more important to make money than protect money.
Oh,
Always.
good point.
Okay.
Revenue cost reductions.
Because you got to figure out how you're going to make the money before you can go protect it, right? Because you got to have money to put in the vault. So the answer is, if you're going to pin me down on one, I'm going to tell you the AI and the
More
ML
important,
is
because that's the
more
thing that
important.
makes
Makes
the
the
most.
money.
Right.
Okay.
And that's unfortunately what people are going to do.
Right. So like case in point, right? There's new legislation which makes your CISO and your CIO criminally culpable,
Yeah.
okay, for knowing that you have a cyber problem and not acting on it. Like the CIO and CISO of SolarWinds are looking at jail time right now. What?
That's the only one that is really where that got to that point.
But it's gonna have, you don't think this is coming in spades? This is coming in spades.
Yeah.
This is coming
That's-
hard.
That's the big one on the highlight.
Right, so now what ends up happening, okay, and this is the real backslog on this from a cyber perspective, is that if I'm the CISO or the CIO, I don't go to jail if I don't know.
Ignorance is bliss.
Okay, if I don't know, I don't go to jail.
And whoever knows goes to jail.
No, but at some point.
But the problem,
The legal argument is going to be there were available tools and
Well, that's-
known way of
but
doing
that's
things
coming in
that you chose not to
2025.
do. Sure.
they get financially penalized. So like if you remember when Target got hacked, and it was $1 billion of a hack. Okay, and the CEO and the CISO and the CIO and everybody, 2 board members lost their jobs. Okay, but there was no criminal, right? They had all the tools. They had all the logs that showed their problem. They didn't read the logs. They didn't read the logs. And it was an external vendor who caused the problem. Okay, so now you're going to need the AI to actually to integrate, to go forward and look at your logs and provide and monitor. Okay, so it's going to be integral. But to answer your question, it's always making money, not affecting money.
That brings up a bit of a dark question on IoT, and something I'd asked in an event almost as interesting as this one years ago at a university in a huge auditorium, talking about all the sensors, all the data collection, self-driving cars, remotely operated. And I said, okay, what if the coder was a pet lover? Dog runs out in front of the car. They know what kind of dog it is. They know the age.
Choose the pet over the humans in the car.
Right.
You're talking about ethics. You're talking about the ethics.
Now, afterwards, I had 4 guys come up to me and I said, okay, you're in a car. You're driving along. Deer runs out in front of you. Scenario A, 90-year-old Mr. or Mrs. Jones is behind you tailgating. This gets back to your insurance thing, Pete. You instantly know what financial ramification is. Hit the deer, miss the deer, 90-year-old Mr. or Mrs. Jones comes up your tailpipe. Scenario B, affluent Dr. Smith is tailgating you. And he's been at the governor's mansion every other week for lunch. They know where he's at. He's very affluent. So you've got 2 different financial outcomes depending on whether you hit that deer because who's tailgating you. And you, as the person in the car, comes out. And I don't expect an answer, but all of the information is there to make a financial decision, unlike probably similar.
You're saying if it was a self-driving car that had all that data,
So
then the algorithm could take into account.
It's managed real time, and you financially say, okay.
I know the answer to this.
With 90-year-old Mr. or Mrs. Jones tailgating you, you hit the brakes or not hit the brakes. Sure. Scenario B, it's affluent Dr. Smith.
Right, but it's a modern version of the trolley problem, right? The trolley problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you know this? So this is a mind. It's a what do you call it? It's a thought exercise, right? Okay. So there's a trolley coming down the track, and there's a switch that you can go one way or the other. And if you pull the switch, then the trolley is diverted and it runs over a child. Okay. If you don't pull the switch, the trolley goes straight and it kills 6 people. Okay. Do you pull the switch or not? And there's no answer to this question. Okay.
Well, when you have insurance companies now monitoring vehicles.
I understand what you're saying.
So Tom,
and somewhere in the code, there is the opportunity for that logic to be in there or not. We don't know. Right.
Oh, and then AI manages it.
Yes.
And they blame AI.
Sure.
Right? So no one goes to jail because AI manages it.
so Tom, you missed the presentation I made two times ago about the company that I'm building to do this.
Just one point before I leave. So AI needs to have explainability.
Right. It can't be a black box.
Yes, it can be.
And AI
algorithms.
Right.
and the AI model was trained by human beings.
That's exactly right.
And we're running up against it, but it'll be time to talk afterwards for sure. Any parting thoughts from you guys? Quick summations?
On the overall topic of where IoT is going, I think IoT becomes more and more the fabric of all of the things that we don't even think about it so much as IoT in the future. Okay. More and more products will have smart connected capabilities because it is advantageous to the customer, to the vendor, to the distributor, or all three, maybe. Okay. And so over time, I think we see it become ubiquitous and not something that you call out as a separate solution.
Yeah. My thought process is if you can make money, save money, or have compliance, do it.
Yes.
If you can get the data, get it. Data was always king. You have to go, and your data strategy has to be paramount before you have any other strategy put together.
Yep.
Because data is actually where you're going to go forward and provide real value to your company.
Awesome. Let's give him a hand, guys.